The cold metal floor of the abandoned mining station pressed against Captain Lee Minho's knees as he peered through a crack in the wall. Red laser beams swept across the empty corridors outside, searching for any sign of human life. The Krillian patrol drones moved in perfect formation, their mechanical whirring echoing through the darkness. Minho pulled back and looked at his small group of survivors. 12 humans huddled in the shadows of what used to be a storage room. 3 years ago, this place had been busy with workers and their families. Now it was just another dead zone in the Krillian Empire. His 7-year-old daughter Hana sat quietly, in the corner, holding her stuffed rabbit close to her chest. The toy was dirty and torn, but she never let it go. It was one of the few things left from their old life before the sky burned and their world ended. "Papa, are the bad lizards gone yet?" Hana whispered. Minho crawled over to her and stroked her black hair. "Not yet, little star, but we have to be very quiet, okay?" She nodded and pressed her face against the rabbit's fur. Minho's heart ached every time he looked at her. She had been so full of laughter before the invasion. Now she barely spoke above a whisper. Lieutenant Park Soman crept through the shadows toward them. Her face was streaked with dirt and worry. She had been a teacher before the war, but now she carried a stolen energy rifle and knew how to use it. "The supply drop never came," she said quietly. "Someone told the Krillians about our meeting point. 3 of our people are missing." Minho felt his stomach drop. Betrayal was always a possibility when people got desperate enough. Food was running low, and winter was coming to this frozen rock they now called home. Who was supposed to make the drop? He asked. Choi Jinu and his team. They had medicine for the sick ones in Sector 7. Soman glanced at Hana, then back at Minho. If they got caught, she didn't need to finish. Everyone knew what happened to humans who got caught stealing, from Krillian supply convoys. The reptilian conquerors liked to make examples. They would broadcast the executions across every human settlement to remind people what happened when they fought back. Old Man Kim shuffled over from where he had been watching another entrance. His leg was still healing from their last escape, and he moved slowly. But his eyes were sharp and his mind was still quick. "The patrol patterns have changed," he said. "They're sweeping this area more often now. Someone definitely talked." Minho closed his eyes and tried to think. They couldn't stay here much longer. The Krillians were getting closer, and they're hiding. Spots were running out. But moving 12 people through enemy territory with winter coming was almost impossible, especially with Hana. The Krillian Empire had conquered 43 star systems over the past 200 years. They were experts at breaking the spirit of other species. Most worlds surrendered after the first bombing. The smart ones gave up, before the shooting even started. But humans were different. They kept fighting even when they should have known better. Even when the odds were hopeless. The Krillians found this both annoying and useful. Annoying because it meant more work to keep them under control. Useful because it meant they could use human stubbornness as an example to scare other species. Earth had lasted longer than most worlds. The human military had been brave and clever, but they were fighting with bullets against energy weapons, with jets against starships. The war lasted 6 months. The occupation had lasted 3 years so far. "We need to move deeper into the station," Minho decided. "The old maintenance tunnels. It will be cold, but we can hide better down there." "What about the others in the outer settlements?" asked Park Juna, a young woman who had lost her entire family in the first bombing. "If we disappear, they'll think we abandoned them." "If we get caught, we can't help anyone," Minho replied. "Dead heroes don't save people." As they gathered their few belongings, Hana tugged on her father's sleeve. "Papa, will we ever go home?" Minho knelt down and took her small hands in his. Home was a crater now, along with their apartment, their neighbors, their old life. But he couldn't tell her that. "Someday, little star. Someday we'll find a new home where you can play outside again." She smiled for the first time in weeks. It was a small smile, but it gave him hope. The group moved carefully through the dark passages of the station. They had practiced this route many times, but it was still dangerous. One wrong turn could lead them into a patrol. One loose piece of metal could make enough noise to bring the drones running. High above them, in the station's command center, Commander Vexcrawl studied the thermal displays. His cold yellow eyes tracked the moving heat signatures below. The humans thought they were clever, but Krillian technology could see through walls and floors. He had been hunting this particular group for months. They were more organized than most human rebels, more careful. But everyone made mistakes eventually, and when they did, he would be ready. The galaxy was about to learn why the Krillian Empire had lasted so long, and why resistance was not just futile, but fatal. The attack came when the station's lights were dimmed for artificial night. Minho had just finished checking the tunnel entrances when the first explosion shook the walls. Metal dust rained from the ceiling as emergency alarms began screaming through the corridors. "Everyone up! Move now!" he shouted, grabbing his weapon and pulling Hana to her feet. The little girl clutched her rabbit tightly, her eyes wide with fear. Blue energy blasts lit up the darkness as Krillian shock troops poured through every entrance they had been watching. The aliens moved fast, their scaled bodies covered in black armor that made them look like walking nightmares. Their weapons fired beams of light that cut through metal walls like paper. "The North Tunnel," Soman yelled, pointing toward their planned escape route. But as they ran toward it, more explosions blocked their path. Chunks of ceiling crashed down, separating the group. Minho found himself on one side of the collapse with 6 others. Hana was on the other side with the rest of their people. He could hear her crying through the rubble. "Hana, stay with Soman," he called out, trying to move the heavy pieces of metal. "I'm coming for you." But the Krillians were already through the broken walls. He could hear energy weapons firing, people screaming, boots marching closer. There was no time. "Papa." Hana's voice echoed from somewhere beyond the debris. Then the sounds of fighting grew louder, and her voice was lost in the chaos. The battle lasted 20 minutes. When it was over, 7 humans were dead, and 5 had been captured. Minho and his remaining group hid in a sealed maintenance shaft, listening to Krillian voices echoing through the tunnels. They spoke in their harsh, clicking language as they searched for more survivors. Hours passed before it was quiet enough for Minho to crawl out. The tunnels were empty now, except for the bodies of his friends, but Hana was not among them. Neither was Soman or the others who had been with her. The captured ones had been taken alive. Commander Vexcrawl stood in the station's main plaza, looking down at the 5 human prisoners kneeling before him. 4 adults and 1 small child. The child was the most interesting one. She would serve his purpose perfectly. The other captured species had learned to fear the Krillians through stories and warnings, but humans seemed to need more direct lessons. They kept fighting even when it was hopeless, even when they should have known better. "Set up the broadcasting equipment," he ordered his communications officer. "Send the signal to every human settlement in this sector. I want them all to see this." The plaza had once been a busy marketplace where human families came to shop and meet friends. Now it was empty, except for Krillian soldiers and their prisoners. The child sat quietly, still holding her stuffed animal. She looked so small, surrounded by towering alien warriors. "What is your name, little human?" Vexcrawl asked, crouching down to her level. "Hana," she whispered, not looking up at him. "And how old are you, Hana?" 7. The commander nodded. "Perfect. Young enough to break hearts, old enough to understand what was happening." The psychological impact would be exactly what he needed. Across dozens of worlds, screens flickered to life in human settlements. In hidden bunkers, refugee camps, and occupied cities, people stopped what they were doing to watch. The Krillians always broadcasted their executions, but something felt different about this one. On Earth, in the ruins of New Tokyo, a group of human survivors gathered around a cracked monitor. Dr. Kim Taeyang was among them, his hands shaking as he recognized the setting. He had worked on that station before the war. On the hijacked freighter drifting near the outer rim, Captain Choi Yuna and her crew stopped their repair work to watch the transmission. They had seen many horrible things during the occupation, but this felt worse somehow. In research facilities, mining colonies, and secret bases throughout the galaxy, millions of humans watched the same broadcast. Parents held their children closer. Fighters gripped their weapons tighter. Everyone held their breath. Back on the station, Hana looked up at the camera for the first time. Her dark eyes seemed to look directly through the screen at everyone, watching. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper, but every human in the galaxy heard it clearly. Papa, if you can see this, I want you to know I'm not scared. And I want you to know I love you very much. She hugged her rabbit tighter. Don't be sad, okay? And don't give up. Promise me you won't give up. Bexkrull raised his weapon, pointing it at the small girl. Let this be a lesson to all humans. This is what resistance brings. This is the price of defying the Krillian Empire. What happened next lasted only seconds, but those seconds changed everything. In hidden bases and refugee camps across the galaxy, humans watched in silence as something innocent and precious was destroyed simply to make a point. When the transmission ended, the galaxy seemed quieter than before. But in that silence, something new was growing. Something that had been sleeping in the human heart was waking up, and when it fully awakened, the Krillian Empire would learn what they had truly unleashed. The death of one small girl had just lit a fire that would burn across the stars. Dr. Kim Taeyang stared at the blank screen for a long time after the broadcast ended. His laboratory on Research Station Kepler 442 was quiet except for the humming of machines. He had been forced to work for the Krillians for 2 years, studying alien diseases and creating medicines for their soldiers. But watching 7-year-old Hana's final moments had broken something inside him. His hands were steady as he walked to his secure computer terminal. For months he had been secretly studying Krillian biology, telling himself it was just curiosity. Now he knew why he had really been doing it. He opened his hidden files and began to work. The Krillians had made one big mistake. They thought killing one child would scare all humans into giving up. Instead, they had given humanity something it had never had before, a single moment that every human in the galaxy had shared. 3 days after the broadcast, Captain Choi Yuna received a coded message on her stolen Krillian frigate. The message was simple. For Hana, it came from Earth. Then another message arrived from the Centauri colonies. Then another from the mining stations near Vega. Soon, messages were flooding in from everywhere humans lived. Yuna had been running supply missions for scattered resistance groups, trying to stay hidden from Krillian patrols. She was tired of running, tired of hiding, tired of being afraid. The messages told her she was not alone. She called her crew to the ship's main meeting room. These were not soldiers. They were teachers, mechanics, farmers, and shop owners who had lost everything when the Krillians came. But something had changed in their eyes since the broadcast. I've been getting messages from resistance cells across the galaxy, she told them. Everyone saw what happened to that little girl. Everyone is angry. But more than that, everyone is ready to fight together. Her engineer, Park Min-soo, looked up from the star charts he had been studying. What are you saying, Captain? I'm saying no more hiding. No more running separate missions and hoping for the best. The Krillians wanted to show us the cost of resistance. Let's show them what happens when you make an enemy of every human in the galaxy. Meanwhile, on the ruins of the mining station, Minho knelt beside a small grave marked only with Hana's stuffed rabbit. He had buried his daughter in secret, afraid the Krillians would destroy even this small memorial if they found it. When he finally stood up, something had changed in him. The desperate father who had spent 3 years just trying to keep his child safe was gone. In his place was a man who had lost everything and therefore had nothing left to fear. He activated an old communication device and sent out a message using frequencies the resistance had kept hidden. This is Lee Minho. My daughter was murdered 3 days ago to scare us into surrender. If you're listening to this and if you're tired of being afraid, meet me at the coordinates I'm sending. It's time to stop running. The response surprised him. Messages came back not just from his sector, but from star systems he had never heard of. Humans everywhere were ready to fight. What the Krillians had not understood was how far humans had spread across the galaxy, even before Earth was conquered. There were human traders on alien worlds, human scientists in research stations, human colonists on distant planets. The Krillian Empire had conquered Earth, but they had not conquered all of humanity. Dr. Kim worked for 18 hours straight, barely stopping to eat or sleep. His research into Krillian biology had shown him something interesting. The reptilian species had a weakness in their nervous system, a specific protein that controlled their motor functions. If he could create something that targeted that protein, he could paralyze Krillian soldiers without killing them. He was not interested in genocide. He was interested in justice. On the other side of the galaxy, Captain Yuna's ship met with 5 other vessels at a hidden asteroid base. The meeting included humans from a dozen different worlds, all carrying the same message. The time for hiding was over. "We have advantages the Krillians don't know about," said Commander Jang Hyuk, who had escaped from Earth with a small fleet of captured ships. "We know their technology because we've been living under it for 3 years. We know their weaknesses because we've been watching them. And we know something they don't understand." "What's that?" asked Yuna. "They think war is about being stronger and having better weapons, but humans fight differently. We adapt, we survive. And when we get angry enough, we do things that other species think are impossible." The meeting lasted 3 days. When it was over, they had a plan that would have seemed crazy to any military strategist. It involved simultaneous attacks on 17 different star systems, using tactics that no trained army would ever attempt. But they were not a trained army. They were angry humans with nothing left to lose. As the ships prepared to leave the asteroid base, Captain Yuna sent one final message to resistance cells across the galaxy. It contained only 2 words: "For Hana." The response came back from hundreds of hidden transmitters, all saying the same thing: "For Hana." The Krillian Empire had ruled the galaxy for 2 centuries because they understood how to break the spirit of other species. But they had never met a species that got stronger when you hurt their children. They were about to learn. 6 months after Hana's death, the galaxy exploded into war. The attacks came at exactly the same time across 17 different star systems. Krillian commanders woke up to reports of human raids hitting their supply bases, communication stations, and military outposts all at once. What shocked them most was not the damage, but how well planned everything was. Captain Minho stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching Krillian ships burn in the space around Kepler Station. His fleet was made up of stolen enemy vessels, modified cargo ships, and anything else that could carry weapons. The humans had painted simple pictures on their hulls. A small girl holding a stuffed rabbit. "Target their command ship," he ordered, quietly. "But remember, we capture, we don't destroy. We're not like them." His weapons officer, a former teacher named Lee Sun-hee, nodded and fired carefully aimed shots that disabled the Krillian cruiser's engines without destroying it. This was how humans fought now. Smart, precise, and always thinking 3 steps ahead. On the other side of the galaxy, Dr. Kim's biological weapon was being put to use for the first time. Captain Yuna's strike team had infiltrated a Krillian military base and released the carefully designed virus into their air system. Within minutes, the reptilian soldiers began collapsing as their nervous systems shut down. "Remember, it's not permanent," Dr. Kim had told them over the radio. "They'll recover in a few hours. We're not murderers, we're liberators." The Krillians had expected human rage to be hot and stupid, like an angry animal lashing out. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that was cold, patient, and terrifyingly smart. Every human attack was designed to cause maximum damage to military targets while avoiding harm to civilians, even Krillian civilians. Commander Vexcrawl stood in his command center on the capital world, watching reports flood in from across the Empire. 17 systems under attack, dozens of bases captured or destroyed, supply lines cut, communication networks disrupted, and all of it done by a species he had considered barely more intelligent than animals. "How are they coordinating these attacks?" he demanded. "We destroyed their military. We control their homeworld. Where are they getting ships and weapons?" His intelligence officer, a nervous young Krillian named Sektar, pulled up a holographic display. "Sir, we think they've been planning this for months, maybe years. They were studying us while we thought we were controlling them. That's impossible, they're primitives. Sir, with respect, our casualty reports suggest otherwise. The reports were indeed troubling. Human forces were using tactics no civilized military would consider. They sent single ships against entire fleets, using suicidal maneuvers that somehow worked. They turned captured Krillian weapons against their makers with modifications that improved their effectiveness. They fought like they had nothing to lose because many of them truly didn't. Captain Yuna's ship, the Little Star, named after Hana, led a small fleet through the asteroid field surrounding Tyrex Prime. Intelligence reports said this was where the Krillians kept their main weapon factories. If they could take out this facility, it would cripple enemy production for months. Captain, we're getting readings of a massive defense fleet, reported her navigator. At least 40 ships. Good, Yuna replied calmly. That means this place is important. Her plan would have horrified any trained military officer. Instead of retreating or calling for backup, she ordered her 12 ships to split up and attack from different directions. Each ship would target a specific part of the defense network, creating confusion and forcing the Krillians to divide their attention. Remember, she broadcast to her fleet, we're not here to die heroically. We're here to win. Stay smart, stay alive, and let's go home when this is done. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, the weapon factories were burning and the Krillian defense fleet was either destroyed or fleeing. Yuna had lost only 2 ships, and both crews had been rescued. Meanwhile, Minho was leading the most dangerous mission of all, a direct assault on the Krillian capital world. His target was not military bases or factories, but something much more important, the government buildings where the Empire's leaders made their decisions. Sir, are you sure about this? Asked his second-in-command, Park Jiwon. If we attack the capital directly, they'll throw everything they have at us. That's exactly what I want, Minho replied. While they're busy trying to stop us, our people will be freeing every slave world in the outer systems. It was a strategy that relied on humanity's greatest strength, the willingness to take risks that seemed insane to other species. While Krillian forces rushed to defend their capital, human strike teams were liberating dozens of conquered worlds across the galaxy. Dr. Kim watched from his laboratory as news reports came in. Planet after planet was declaring independence from the Krillian Empire. Species that had been slaves for centuries were suddenly free, and it was all happening because one small girl's death had awakened something sleeping in the human heart. The Krillians had thought they understood war. They had conquered 43 star systems using superior technology and overwhelming force, but they had never faced an enemy that fought with love as much as anger, that planned with patience as much as fury. As Minho's fleet approached the capital world, he looked at the picture of Hana taped to his command console. We're coming, little star, he whispered. Papa kept his promise. The final battle was about to begin. The final battle for Kiros Prime lasted only 6 hours, but it changed the galaxy forever. Minho's fleet broke through the last line of Krillian defense ships as the planet's red sun began to set. His soldiers moved through the capital city's streets like shadows, avoiding the main roads and using underground tunnels that human slaves had secretly mapped for months. The Krillian government building stood in the center of the city, a massive tower of black stone that had been built to show the Empire's power. Now it would witness its end. Commander Vexkral waited in the highest floor with his remaining officers. Through the tall windows, he could see fires burning across his capital city. Reports kept coming in of human forces taking control of government, buildings, communication centers, and military bases. Sir, our outer defenses have fallen, reported his aide. The humans are in the building. Vexkral turned away from the window. For 200 years, the Krillian Empire had ruled through fear and strength. No species had ever challenged them successfully. But these humans fought differently than anyone else. They fought like they were already dead, which made them impossible to frighten. The door to the command room exploded inward. Human soldiers poured through, their weapons trained on the Krillian officers. Behind them walked a man Vexkral recognized. From intelligence reports, Captain Lee Minho, the father of the child he had executed 6 months ago. Commander Vexkral, Minho said quietly, walking across the room until he stood directly in front of the reptilian leader. We meet at last. Vexacral lifted his chin proudly. So the primitive seeks his revenge. Kill me then, human. Prove that. You are the savage animals we always said you were. Minho studied the alien's face for a long moment. His hand rested on his weapon, and everyone in the room knew he could end this with a single shot. The man who had murdered his daughter stood helpless before him. Instead, Minho activated a holographic display that filled the room with images from across the galaxy. Dozens of star systems that had been under Krillian control were now free. Alien species that had been slaves for generations were celebrating in their streets. The mighty empire that had lasted 2 centuries was crumbling in a single day. I could kill you, Minho said calmly. Every human in the galaxy would understand. Every parent would approve. But my daughter believed that even monsters could choose to be better. He gestured to the images floating around them. Your empire is finished. Your fleets are destroyed or surrendered. Your slave worlds are free. You have 2 choices now. You can face the same fate you gave to millions of others, or you can accept exile to a single world under the supervision of the new galactic government. What new government? Vexcral demanded. The one we're building. Humans, Zinthari, Velkans, and every other species you enslaved. A government based on cooperation instead of conquest. Dr. Kim's voice came through Minho's communication device. Captain, the biological weapon has been neutralized across all remaining Krillian positions. Their military is completely disabled, but unharmed. They'll recover within hours. Vexcral stared at the human captain. You could have killed us all. Why didn't you? Because we're not you, Minho replied simply. We don't murder children to make a point. 3 months later, representatives from 47 different species gathered on Earth to sign the Galactic Cooperation Charter. The meeting took place in New Seoul, built on the ruins of the old city. The first president of the new government was chosen by unanimous vote, Captain Lee Minho. President Minho stood before a memorial wall in the center of the city. Thousands of names were carved into the black stone, remembering all those who had died under Krillian rule. At the center, in letters of gold, was written, Hana Lee, age 7, her light sparked the dawn. Captain Park Soman, now Admiral of the Coalition Defense Force, approached him with a final report. The last Krillian holdouts have surrendered peacefully. Sir, Commander Vexcral and his people have been transported to their designated world. It's over. Minho nodded slowly, his hand touching his daughter's name on the memorial. No, Soman. It's not over. It's just beginning. The new government faced enormous challenges, 47 species with different needs, different cultures, different ways of thinking, rebuilding worlds that had been destroyed, healing the wounds left by 2 centuries of oppression, learning to trust each other after so much pain. But they had something the Krillian Empire had never possessed, the understanding that strength came from protecting the innocent, not from destroying them. A year later, Minho received a message from the Krillian exile world. It was from Vexcral himself, written in careful human language. We have learned to grow our own food. We have built schools for our young ones. We ask nothing from you except to be left in peace. Perhaps your daughter was right. Perhaps even monsters can choose to be better. Minho smiled as he read the message. Outside his office window, he could see human and alien children playing together in the rebuilt streets of New Seoul. The galaxy was healing, slowly but surely. He walked to his desk and picked up a small, worn stuffed rabbit, the only thing left of his daughter. We did it, little star, he whispered. We chose to build instead of destroy. We chose hope instead of hate, just like you would have wanted. The memorial inscription had been right. From the darkest sorrow had come the brightest hope. And humanity had shown the galaxy that the greatest victory was not conquest, but the choice to create something better.